Let's welcome in Zach Sibney, Larry Hartstein, Mike McClure. You guys working overtime today. Let's start with the first game of the slate. The 1-seed Broncos hosting Buffalo. The Broncos fresh off their bye, looking for revenge after what happened last year. Bills ended their season in a blowout. Zach, Josh Allen was already dealing with the foot, now the knee. He was in the medical tent twice on Sunday. Everybody else around him banged up, just 3 healthy receivers. Yet you're back in the superhero to get it done again.
Yeah, I'm back in the Bills. All that does is speak to me is line value for this game, Claudia. Taking the Bills minus the 1.5. This Bills team definitely not as talented as some other playoff teams of the past, but this is the best opportunity for Josh Allen and company to advance further in the AFC. As you look, their last exits, 4 out of their past 5 exits in the playoffs were by Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And when I look at Denver, they had a great regular season. They're going to keep being a playoff team, but they left the door open in a lot of regular season games. Were able to pull off those close wins, but playoff time is usually when that gets exposed. And you look at Bo Nix, you touched on it, Claudia. One of his worst performances was against this Bills team in the wild card round last year, where the Denver Broncos scored just those 7 points, the second fewest points that Denver has scored in the Bo Nix era. I'll tail the Buffalo Bills here minus the 1.5.
I'm right there with you, Zach. I like Buffalo in this game. However, I pivoted to playing them on the team total currently, just the number being at 23.5. I think there are many scenarios where this game does get overly competitive, and it is a very, very tough game, but all of them involve the Bills still getting to 24 points, in my opinion. And that's why I don't really love Denver in this game, is because I think it probably takes close to 30 points to knock out Josh Allen in this particular spot. And while the road games are never ideal, certainly not a spot that's uncomfortable for him. And the receiving core beat up, just 3 healthy wide receivers. He doesn't use them a lot anyway. As long as the running back core is healthy, I think they're going to be fine. I like the Bills here for a 24th point in this game.
Well, the one receiver he does use a lot is Khalil Shakir, who happens to have the best matchup of any of these Bills receivers, facing off against Jaquan McMillan, who gives up the 3rd most yards in the slot. Shakir lines up in the slot 70% of the time. We all saw what he did last week, how often Josh Allen targeted him. And if you go back last year to the playoff matchup, he had 6 catches on 6 targets. You know, I got to credit prop bet guy, our colleague over at Sportsline. He got over 4.5 catches early in the week, but I still like it over 5.5 at plus money for Khalil Shakir.
To be honest, when I was looking at this game, I love teasers, so I was like, oh, I'll just tease the Seahawks down, right? Because I don't want to lay the 7.5, and I'll get the Bills up over a touchdown, which I still do think is a play. But the more I looked into it, I just don't see how Josh Allen can continue to put the whole team on his back. Everybody's hurt. We saw the run offense stifled last week by the Jags defense, which was number 1 against the run. But now you face the Broncos, who are number 2 against the run, and they have a harder defense up front, and they have a tougher secondary. Jordan Poyer is out for the Bills, among other guys who are beat up. And I think the Bills won that game against the Jags despite their defense. T-Law had 3 touchdown passes. The offense overall, 6.6 yards per play. And elevation is a thing. I asked several football players. I'm like, I don't want to be the talking head that says elevation, but it's a thing. And Denver's 14-3 at home, and they're fresh. The Bills are going through 2 time zones, all beat up. I tried. You could tease it, but I'm just going to take the Broncos. Second game on Saturday. We have the Seahawks coming off the bye, hosting the Niners. Biggest spread on the board, as I mentioned. They split the regular season series, both low-scoring games. And, Mike, if we get another low-scoring game, then 7.5 points is certainly valuable.
Yeah, I think the 7 here is valuable with the 49ers. This is a matchup that's extremely familiar for them. And to me, it comes down to coaching and having a guy like Christian McCaffrey. The combination of Shanahan and McCaffrey together, a healthy Brock Purdy who can take off and use his legs. I just think this team is a lot closer than 7 given the circumstances. And frankly, I don't trust Seattle in this big spot. I know that they're well rested coming in. I can have some concerns as to whether or not there's a little bit of rust. This is an offense that was awesome early in the season and really kind of fell off. To me, I don't trust Sam Darnold in this particular spot just yet. I think this is a tight, competitive game. I like the Niners here a lot at 7.
Well, the one unit I trust is the Seattle defense, and they held them to 173 yards just a few weeks ago, 4.1 yards per play. The Niners only had 22 minutes time of possession. They won't have George Kittle to help the running game. They've scored 17 points and 3 points in their 2 matchups with the Seahawks. So I like targeting the 49ers team total under 18.5. We've seen it all season. When the 49ers play a bad defense like the Bears, they can go nuts. When they play the elite defenses, they tend to struggle. I'm going to go under 18.5.
And I'm going to go over Sam Darnold, the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, on his passing yards prop of 238.5. You examine the 2 regular season matchups against San Francisco. He never eclipsed 198 passing yards, but this is a different scenario here with Seattle coming off the bye week. It's a chance to be aggressive against this San Francisco team, coming off a tough road win against Philadelphia, and to be aggressive, utilize that ground game early and use that play action. They ran the ball very well against San Francisco in that Week 18 win, 180 yards on the ground. And we also saw Sam Darnold finish that fourth quarter very strong, had 2 strong drives, made key clutch throws. I think Seattle's more aggressive with their passing offense, and this one will go over 238.5 for Sam Darnold.
7's a lot of points. So I'm just going to look at the first quarter. We're betting numbers. You get under that key number of 3, so Seahawks laying 2.5. I think that is the play. They're fresh. They're ready to go at home. I don't know if the Niners will be as inept as they were in that last game. Larry, you mentioned how few yards they had. They had just 9 first downs, 1 trip to the red zone. They stopped CMC completely on the ground. Not that he had much opportunity because of how the game was going. Either way, first quarter, 2.5. They've been hitting that consistently. I think that is the play. Staying away from that big number 7. On Sunday, the Pats, my squad, host the Texans. I'm going to this game. I'm going to be sweating it all out. Patriots open 2.5-point favorite. Quickly bet to 3. No looking back. They're hanging at 3. Houston seeking its first ever AFC Championship appearance. They are the only franchise to have never made it to a conference championship. Larry, Patriots took down a good Chargers defense. How do you see them playing against an even better defense in the Texans?
It's definitely a better defense, but I think we're a little bit swayed by how bad that Steelers offense was. You know, you have a statue at quarterback who's 42 and it's time to retire. You have a very unimaginative play caller, and you don't really have a lot of great weapons. And now taking on the Patriots, this is another deal entirely, especially with Drake May's ability to move, which we saw against the Chargers. You know, he played a very poor first half in his first half of playoff football. After halftime, 11 of 14, 173 yards and a touchdown. The mistakes weren't there, so that was very encouraging. And the Patriots defense might have been the most impressive unit that we saw all weekend, just based on what we expected, because they got the guys healthy, including Milton Williams. They totally flummoxed the Chargers. I'm going to lay the 3 with the Patriots.
And I'm going to go the other way here on the Texans. Look, I think it'll be a tight, competitive game. Both teams very, very good defensively. I have some concerns about the Patriots' offensive line holding up. I do understand that Drake May is certainly far more athletic than this Aaron Rodgers that we've seen over the last few weeks. However, I still have some concern there. And the real concern that I have is C.J. Stroud played about as bad as you could possibly play at the quarterback position in the NFL when having such dominant field position really all the time. And to me, I think that he can't play any worse. I think he'll really rebound from that performance that we saw. And I think we get a tight, competitive game. And I don't think the number should be a full field goal. I have this one closer to 1.5. So I take the points here with the Texans.
And I'm going to break the tie here. I'm taking the Texans as well, plus the 3 points. I love the formula we're seeing from the Texans. A little bit of that old school formula, relying on their defense, getting just enough out of their offense. And in last week's win for the Patriots over the Chargers, Drake May still had his issues, put the ball on the ground a couple of times in the fourth quarter, nearly threw a pick 6. And this was a defense May could not figure out last season. He was sacked 4 times, had 3 turnovers. So I think this Texans defense is going to be the catalyst once again. I would not be surprised if they get their 3rd defensive touchdown of the postseason. I'll take the Texans probably to move on to the AFC Championship, but plus the 3 points.
Probably. I get it. We're betting numbers here. 3 makes sense. I'm going to go with the Drake May prop, but I do just want to give props and credit to Zach Cord, the DC, who stepped in last minute when Williams, unfortunately for the Patriots, they brought him to be their DC. He was diagnosed with cancer. And I don't think people realized what core has been doing with this defensive unit. Now they're getting healthier. They had Chargers players coming up to the sideline saying, we can't tell what coverage they're in. It's really tough to play against this defense. So I do think C.J. Stroud might run into some issues. 5 fumbles last week. I know we don't see that week to week, and only 2 of them were lost, but he was shook up a little bit. Offensive line does worry me a bit, especially on the weak side for Drake May. But the best part about Drake May is he has those legs. He's going to extend those plays. So that's where I'm going. I'm going to go over on rush yards. The Texans are good at limiting the rush attempts, but in terms of rush yards per carry, 6.5 to quarterbacks. And he's not just scrambling for 2 yards and sliding. He's going to run as far as he can because the Patriots want to continue on. And they will, and they're going to the Super Bowl. The final game of the slate, the Rams visiting the Bears. Both teams needed late-game heroics last week to get here. Rams no longer a 10-point favorite like we saw against the Panthers. They are, though, laying 3.5 on the road, so they still have that respect. Mike McClure, how you betting this one?
I'm playing the first half under here, still under the number of 24.5, just fading 4 first half touchdowns. Obviously, you could get there with 3 touchdowns and multiple field goals. I think the kicking game will be very difficult, though, in this one with the cold temperatures. In this particular matchup, I think that both teams still, while they can throw the ball, I think they'll run just a little bit. I think the game will be tight. I think it'll be competitive early. We've seen Chicago, a lot of the offensive success has come in the second half of these games. I think we could see a little bit slower of a start, but for me, it's just a big number, right? It's priced as if this game were outdoors in perfect condition, indoors or closer to perfect conditions. So I'll pay to find out on that key number. I think it'll probably close closer to kickoff at the 23.5. So I would play it now.
It's going to be bitter cold, but it's not going to be super windy. And I think the Rams, even if they have to lean on the run a little bit more than they like to, are still going to be very effective and get to 27 points, over 26.5. You have a Bears defense, bottom 5 in almost every metric, that loses their top linebacker in TJ Edwards. You have the Rams getting back their best offensive lineman in Kevin Dotson, and maybe Terrence Ferguson, the explosive tight end, another weapon for Matthew Stafford. The Rams team total is typically 28.5, 27.5. We never get this discount of 26.5, and that's because of the weather. But I still love the Rams to get over this number for the 8th time in their last 9 games.
And I'm going to go to the prop market here. I think this could be a successful game for anyone that attacks the props here. I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift over 14.5 receiving yards. This Rams defense just has not been the same since they lost that Thursday night matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. And Ben Johnson, of course, is very familiar in attacking this Rams defense from being the OC with the Detroit Lions. Had a couple of matchups against them in 2023 and 2024 where Jahmyr Gibbs excelled out of the backfield, 34 yards in one game, 43 yards receiving in the other. And we just saw on the graphic DeAndre Swift a career high in receiving yards against this Rams defense last season, 72 receiving yards. I expect Swift to go over 14.5 receiving yards.
And Larry, I'm going to tell you there, one of my favorite bets on the board all season really has been the Rams team total. I get why the number is a bit lower, but I'll take advantage of that. They are one of the most profitable teams when it comes to cashing their team total, but also in the red zone, scoring over 63% of the time. 2 of the last 12, they've cashed that number. So I will tell you there. Zach Simony, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein.
Likely affect his decision. And with that, we welcome in friend of the program and CBS Sports NFL writer John Breach. And John, when Mike Tomlin became the Steelers head coach way back in January of 2007, Steve Jobs had just introduced the iPhone and a young Coley Harvey was still in college trying to figure out life. So that was a really long time ago. You just heard Steelers owner Art Rooney II say that he wasn't shocked by Tomlin's decision to leave the team after those 19 seasons, but that he also wasn't expecting it. Why would it have made sense for Rooney to give Tomlin another year?
Well, I think you look at Mike Tomlin's track record. If you're the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are an organization that is always successful. And I think that's part of the reason why people have been so surprised that they haven't won a playoff game for 9 years, and part of the reason why fans were kind of growing disenchanted with Tomlin. But if you're Rooney, you look around the league, there are no other teams that have had the track record of Mike Tomlin of finishing 500 or above for 19 straight seasons. for winning the division all the time, for always being in the playoff race. There was only 1 week over the past 19 years where the Steelers were out of playoff contention in a game that Mike Tomlin coached. So it's just this track record of success. And I do understand the fan frustration where, yes, Tomlin is finishing above 500. Yes, he's winning playoffs, but he's not, or he's getting to the playoffs, but he's not winning playoff games. He's not winning Lombardi trophies. And so I do see that. But when you look around and see how difficult it is to maintain success in the NFL, there are a lot of teams that would love to be in the Steelers' shoes. And that's why if you're Art Rooney, you would have been more than happy to have Mike Tomlin back, because he brings sustainable success with him. And not many coaches in NFL history can say that.
Stability is one of the most important things in the NFL, and it's something that we all take for granted in the league. It's amazing the Steelers have only had 3 head coaches, like we said, since 1969. And as we we didn't get a chance to see this, but something that I do want to note is that many of them, all 3 of them, were in their mid-30s when they were hired. 37 years old for Chuck Noll, 34 years old for both Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher when they were both hired by the Steelers. All of them going on to have legendary careers, legendary tenures with the Steelers. So the Rooney family has long favored youth in that role. I want to ask you about the quarterback position, though, John. Starter Aaron Rodgers, he's 42 years old, and he's got his own decisions to make right now about his future. How do you think that Tomlin's departure is going to affect Rodgers and the Steelers?
Well, I think Rooney answered that question. Aaron Rodgers came to Pittsburgh to play for Mike Tomlin. That was a big part of his decision-making. So if you take Mike Tomlin out of the equation, well, that means I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be totally up in the air about what he does in 2026. Maybe he decides to retire. I don't think he's going to want to go to a new team, learn a new offense, unless it's a Super Bowl contender that's a quarterback away. So if you're Rodgers, maybe you wait around to see. Maybe it's an offensive-minded coach that you click with and you think, all right, I could go back to Pittsburgh, maybe lead this team. But at his age, you really don't want to go to a new team and start learning new things. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up retiring. To me, it feels like it's either going to be 1 more year with the Steelers, assuming he likes the new head coach, or it's going to be retirement. And right now, you have to think he's leaning toward retirement just because he's an old guy.
Hey, you know, God, I'm not too far behind him, so I don't really want to say those words too much, but he is a very old guy when it comes to playing in the National Football League. Now, the season may be over for Rodgers and the Steelers, but it does continue for 8 teams this weekend. We start off with the Buffalo Bills, and when we look at the Bills, they're visiting Denver on Saturday, and the Bills are going to be without a bevy of receivers, including Tyrell Shavers and Gabe Davis, 2 key pieces in the passing game who suffered season-ending ACL injuries in last week's win at Jacksonville. Some good news, though. Curtis Samuel practiced fully for the 2nd straight day on Wednesday, but he has yet to be activated off the injured reserve. We'll see if that happens. For right now, Buffalo has just 3 healthy wide receivers on its active roster. And when you have 3 healthy receivers against the NFL's second-rate total defense, that sounds like a recipe for disaster, John. What's the level of concern for Josh Allen and his passing game in this matchup?
Oh, there's absolutely some concern, Coley, when you look at this depth, but I do think it's something that they will be able to adjust to pretty quickly. I mean, you look at Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers during the regular season, they didn't have a lot of production. I think they combined for just 27 catches between them all year. So if you're Buffalo, you really want the offense when you're playing the Broncos to kind of run through your tight ends. If you look at what the Broncos defense has kind of struggled with, there were only 10 teams all season that gave up at least 1,000 receiving yards to opposing tight ends. The Broncos were one of them. So when you think about your passing game, you look at Dalton Kincaid, you look at Dawson Knox, and you start thinking, all right, these are the guys we have to try and get the ball to. And then you do obviously want to throw some passes to your receivers, and that's where guys like Khalil Shakur and Keon Coleman need to step up. And those are guys, they're going to have career games, and that's what we saw Shakur do against the Jags last week. He had 12 catches. He had never had double-digit receptions in a single game in his entire career, and he goes off for 12 against Jacksonville. So those are the kind of performances that you are going to need. And let's not forget, the Buffalo Bills had the #1 rushing offense in the NFL during the regular season. So when push comes to shove, that is what they're going to need to do. Get James Cook going, and then that takes the sting off a little bit. if you're hurting at receiver, which they are right now.
Speaking of coming to shoving, you had the tush push in the game against the Jaguars. That's Josh Allen at his best when he is running the football. We'll see if he can do that. We'll also see if he can continue to play clean football. You saw no turnovers there in those last several playoff games for Josh Allen. That's very impressive for him. Also hoping to play clean football, but probably not going to get a chance to do that. The Bears and the Rams, they're doing that in the temperatures that are just bone-chillingly cold. Check this out. Sunday night in Chicago, according to the National Weather Service, the temperatures at Soldier Field will dip into the single digits. And I can tell you, I'm a former resident, I should say, of the South Loop area of Chicago. I've spent many a day running and walking in those single-digit degrees. They're not very fun. I know that my hands would not be able to catch passes from Matthew Stafford, but John, will this Rams passing attack, will they be formidable at all in these frigid temperatures for LA?
This is interesting because if you're the Rams, you're practicing all week out in sunny LA. I mean, Sean McVay needs to fly this team to northern Alaska so they can properly prep for what's going to happen. I know that Matthew Stafford, he went from playing in a dome in Detroit to playing in a dome in LA. So it's not like he has played outdoors a ton. He has actually only played 4 games in his career, 17-year career, where the temperature has been under 30 degrees. And his numbers won't blow you away. He's only averaging about 186 passing yards per game, 6 touchdown passes, 1 interception. So he's not making mistakes, but he's not putting up huge numbers. So it will be interesting to see how the passing game responds, because if the cold weather is going to slow down anything, it is going to be the passing game. And that would be a huge benefit for the Bears, because you look at this is a Bears defense that gave up the 11th most passing yards in the NFL during the regular season. They gave up the 5th most touchdown passes. And now they have to face Stafford, who led the NFL in passing yards and touchdown passes. So if the cold weather can slow the Rams down, that would be a huge benefit for Chicago. I'm not sure the cold weather will necessarily slow down Matt Stafford. I think it's going to depend on the wind at the game. If it's 30-mile-an-hour winds blowing, it's hard to throw the football when the winds are blowing hard. Maybe the Rams catch a break. It's only 5-10-mile-an-hour winds. If that's the case, I think Stafford will be okay because he has a rocket for an arm. So I think that is going to be the thing to watch for on Sunday evening is how fast are those winds blowing, because I think that could have the biggest impact on the passing game, no matter how cold it is.
Yeah, right now the winds are slated to be between 10 and 20 miles an hour. So to your point, that could impact the passing game. Also the kicking game as well. One thing it might not impact is what the Bears do late in the games. Of course, Bears fans hoping to see maybe another comeback if their team's down late in that game. Either way, it's going to be a fun, amazing playoff weekend. John Breach, we really appreciate you for the insight. The divisional round kicks off Saturday on CBS. Josh